Have you ever wondered how close your American vintage 50s neck is compared to a real 1950s neck? I figured while I have a real 1950s neck in my possession that we could go over some of the differences. The top two necks are the American Vintage 2 57 reissues. Both are unfinished. The third neck down is the American Original 50s model, and the bottom neck is a real 1956 Fullerton neck. First, we'll start with the headstock thickness. So first we'll start with the American Vintage 2 57. Now, being unfinished, these will be thicker with lacquer on them. Now we'll do the next one. Now the American Original 50s. That's pretty close to the old ones. This is the original 56. Now, I also have another 50s reissue. Whoops. We'll just do this real quick, just for another example. And I have a 57 Music Master that's been refinished and redecaled, but still. So next, we're going to do the little taper, the radius that goes from the bone nut to the face of the headstock, this little spot right here. So we'll start with this 56 neck, and just visually, I'll let you look at this little spot right here. I don't know if that's focusing or not. I'll compare it to this reissue neck. It doesn't matter which one I pull out because they're all exactly the same. Again, here is this 56. So if I take, this is everyday household stuff, that way you guys might have it too. This is a 1.5 inch circle. And if you look, this fits this piece perfectly. Now, if I take that same thing over to this neck, by the way, this is really hard to do this with the camera in front of your face. There's a huge gap under there. Now, if I take this bottle, if I can get it in there, it fits it perfectly. Actually, you know what? I can see a small micro hair gap under this, so this might be even an inch diameter, which would make it like a 1/2 inch radius, I guess. Now, if I take this same 1 1/4 inch to this vintage neck, it is just too small. Again, this radius right here, this would be like what, 3/4 inch radius. That fits it. Now it's probably hard to see on this camera, especially when I'm using both hands because I can't focus. But that fits that like a glove. And if I go over here and grab this 50s Music Master neck, it's a pretty good fit. If I take this guy, it's just loosey-goosey. It doesn't fit at all. And again, I mean, you can see that's a somewhat of a, let me focus this. Will this focus? Anyway, it's a big difference. This is clearly not the correct 50s taper. It's way too steep. And again, if I take this and stick this 1¼ inch radius on here, even that is a hair too big. You can kind of see that little gap right at the top of my thumb. So anyway, it's a small radius they use on these reissues. The custom shops, to be honest, I'm not sure. I kind of think they have that small radius too on a lot of them. But I mean, when you compare this, here, let me just put the 50s actual Strat neck. That way it's apples to apples. There's a big difference there compared to this. If this was a launch or a ramp, you'd be flying up in the air, where this one would shoot you off this way. So anyway, there's the radius. It's definitely different than the original, so not correct. Hopefully Fender watches this and does something about that. If you guys care, we care, so hopefully you care too. Next, I'm going to move on to the actual shape of the headstock and see how close the ball is and all of this stuff. So that's coming up next. So for this part of the video, I traced these headstocks. This is the left-handed one. I just traced it on this side, and then I put it up against the window and made it right-handed. So 56 reissue, 57, and honestly, if I take all these headstocks in these shapes, here's a piece that I cut out. This is the 50s. They all match up pretty much identically. The only difference is Fender gets a little heavy on the sanding. Sorry, I'm moving around a lot. In this area right here. So some of these get sanded and shaped different. So anyway, I'm going to set up the camera, and then I'll start sticking the 50s neck on top of these and show you the difference in shape. And I'll compare. The main reason I brought out these lefties is because you can stick these necks on top of each other like this and match everything up, and it really helps. So let me reset up the camera and we'll start comparing the headstock shape. So the 56 headstock is lined up with the tracing, but you can't see the tracing, so I'm going to take the camera back off and then I'll go around the headstock and tracing and show you the differences. So coming up now. So the bone nut is lined up with the tracing. And the first thing you'll notice, well, after I show you, is if you look at this part right here, on the vintage ones, it's longer. It goes further towards the nut. And on the reissues, I don't know if they sand that off after it's been carved out or if it's just the pattern they use. Other than that, everything looks good until you get to the end. And you can see how much further the reissues stick out. They're more of an oval shape. I mean, it's a pretty big difference. Now, maybe I traced that wrong. That's why I have the lefty neck. So, I'm going to stick this guy right here. Let me match up the butt. Okay, let's get above this thing. Alright, so here we go. And you can see it's the same thing. The reissue headstocks are just longer. More of an oval shape. So if you've seen my other video, there's like hundreds of necks here. The most common thing I see with all these necks, well, for one, every last one of them is longer. Doesn't matter if it's a 65, 50s, 59, every last one is this shape. So they're using like the same exact headstock for every model. A lot of them are over sanded here, and they're over sanded right here, and probably over sanded here, I'm guessing, on pretty much every last one of them. So yeah, because if you look at this, these all have this little kind of a bump right here, and these ones are all missing it. Now, to be like honest, the 54 and 55 necks, they're kind of like this. If you took this neck and mixed them together, this part kind of comes through there like that versus having that little bump right there. Yeah, honestly, in my spare time, everybody else is like playing games and watching movies, doing all this stuff. I'm like looking at guitar necks and parts. I've been doing this for like 20 years, just staring at details. I have thousands of pictures, so it's just what I do for my fun, I guess, my spare time. So anyway, I just thought I'd share this with you guys. Who cares about the fingerboard radius? Because those change. Obviously the vintage is 725 are supposed to be. This is that fingerboard that was sanded off completely and modified. So that's not original, but this is oversprayed, but all original. So the shape is there. So that's what matters. Anyway, I hope you like this video, and also I'll talk about the flack I got on this neck. So I'll do that right now. So yeah, on this neck, basically a couple days ago, I made a video where I explained how the entire fingerboard back in the day was sanded off, like a whole millimeter's gone. It was refretted and resprayed, so I antiqued the fingerboard, and a few people got mad and said how terrible it was and how fake it looked and how they could do it better. If you're one of those people, if you could show me a video on how to do it better, I'd love to watch it because I'm always trying to do the best I can. This was actually a free job that I did for a friend. So anyway, I thought it looked good, and it's like a painting too. Like I do this stuff, and then after a painting or after I work on this kind of stuff, I take a day or two and I look at it, walk away, look at it again, and then I work on it more. Just like I did with this, I'll probably work on this even more. Um, it was fun. Does it look fake? Maybe it is fake, so maybe it does. The cool thing is, it looks at least stock for the rest of the parts. They're all rusty and worn out, and the owner of it now can play it and add natural wear to it. So it's all good. It's nothing that ruined the neck. If someone could always respray the fingerboard if they wanted, I wouldn't. But so yeah, whatever. I hope you liked this video. I hope you learned something new, and sorry for the little end rant, but I just wanted to address the haters out there. You guys can go to hell. No, I'm just kidding. I respect your opinion. I really do. And maybe I just can't see what you're seeing. I did it. Maybe I'm partial. Maybe it looks like total crap, honestly. And maybe it totally could, I guess. But I just did it the best I could do for now. Again, it was free, so to help a friend, so it is what it is. With the rest of the video, I hope you learned something new as far as the headstock shapes and thicknesses and contours and stuff. Oh, there's one thing I want to mention. On some necks, the this one is plain down, but right above that little walnut plug, some of them are the what do you call it? The maple is really far away from that spot. So that's another difference. But a lot of the reissues, they're like kind of 50-50. Some are dead on, some aren't. But anyway, again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.